You got it.
All right. So we are recording. Okay. So let's not blame me if it doesn't record. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's kind of first meeting of the year. I just might mention that Michelle warned me that since this is a special meeting, we can't add anything to the agenda. So we're going to follow the agenda so that Michelle doesn't yell at me. Okay, the first thing we wanted to do is I did invite Rich Shriver, who indicated he was going to come. Maybe he will show up. But as you know, Rich is the head of the Chamber of Old Lyme, and we would really like him to participate because a lot of what we're doing should be coordinated with them and impacts the chamber. And so we're hoping that maybe he'll join us. I know the chamber has not been very active during COVID, but I told him that's unimportant. We really want to, we have a bunch of projects on the table that would really impact the chamber. So we're hoping that they participate. We wanted to officially welcome Cheryl with her appointment. So Cheryl, I don't know if, I'm assuming everybody knows who you are because you do so much for the town, but maybe just give us the 2-minute intro so make sure people understand who you are and all the thousands of things you do.
Okay. Thanks, Howard. My husband and I have been residents of Old Lyme since 1999, and we have 3 sons that went through the school system. And I, for the past 3 or 4 years, have been involved in a new partnership called the Old Lyme Arts District, which is a partnership of the arts and cultural organizations on Lime Street that put on the Midsummer Festival and several other events. I previously was employed at the Florence Griswold Museum in the marketing department. And when my husband retired from Pfizer, I also retired. We were supposed to do a lot of traveling this past year. That didn't happen. So instead of Europe, we had Sustainable Old Lyme. And so I've been involved in pulling together different documentation and understanding of what different departments and commissions in Old Lyme do to make Old Lyme a more sustainable and resistant town. And we recently received our bronze certification from Sustainable Connecticut, and we are working on silver now.
Okay, great. Well, you get our official welcome. Hi, Joey. So you just joined us. Good. I have a couple of announcements I think folks will be interested in. So let me get those out of the way. The Board of Finance did approve our project for the Business Resource Guide. They approved that unanimously. And I thought we needed Board of Selectmen approval too, but apparently we do not. So that we can initiate that project. We have $7,012 budgeted for that. That's carryover from last year. So if there's anyone who would, I think we need to have someone kind of work with Advanced CT on the project, help guide them and make sure that it's meeting what our needs. So if anyone would like to take on that role, that would be great. Just email me if you have any interest in doing that. That was the first thing. Second thing I want to remind people, I sent out the draft POCD, and tomorrow is a public meeting and you can go online and look at the Planning Committee's agenda, and you can find the information how to get on that meeting. But, this is a once in a 10-year opportunity. The POCDs are only done once every 10 years. So if you miss this meeting, you'll have to wait another 10 years. But if you looked at the draft, you will see that we are kind of prominently mentioned a number of times. We reference our studies with advanced CT, and they were nice enough to put down action items for the EDC in there. I would say, it's an important document that comes around once a year. So I would
Once every 10
recommend
years.
if you have the time to try to join that meeting, that would be a good idea. The other thing I wanted to mention, and we'll ask Edie to report later on other business about updating us on the Halls Road Committee. But just in case we get bogged down, I want to make sure that people are aware of that BSC provided their first report, and it was a marketing study. And I thought it was interesting to note that a couple of things. One, as you probably have heard, the Bank of America is going to be closing their Old Lyme office as in March. Additionally, there were other businesses that indicated to BSC that they were not renewing their leases. So we've debated, and I think the Halls Road Committee has debated, how viable is the business community on Halls Road? And people have all sorts of opinion that it's fine, and others think it won't. It needs to be. It has some real issues long term. So, but wherever you are on that scale, we don't have to debate that. The needle's moved. It's moved in the wrong direction. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind as we move forward with some of our projects. Okay. I'm now going to, so those are all the announcements I had. I'm hoping we can spend some time on the spotlight issue, business spotlight, and getting the art subcommittee formed. But for some reason, last meeting was kind of hectic. We had a number of presentations from the outside. We skipped doing the minutes to try to save some time. So I want to go back and just, we will need to approve the minutes from both November and December. So if anyone would care to make a motion to do that, that would be
I'll
great.
make a motion to approve the minutes from both November and December.
Okay, anyone have any questions on the minutes? No. Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Anyone opposed? No. Okay, great. All right. So, what I think what will probably be easier is Cheryl back on.
Yep.
Oh, there you are, Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl, could you just describe, I guess, one, the purpose of the subcommittee, two, who's going to compose it? Do you need members from the EDC? And I know you're going to choose some members outside of the EDC, and what the purpose is and how it will operate. And I think there's a couple things, as a subcommittee, all subcommittees, if you have any meetings, they must meet the Freedom of Information Act. So there must be agendas and published and minutes kept. And, I think obviously one of the options was to have this as a separate committee outside of the EDC. but that was rejected because I think the feeling was there was a lot of subcommittees and the Board of Selectmen didn't want one additional committee to deal with. But if you're a subcommittee of the EDC, then that would require that any actions also be approved by members of the EDC. So I think that's kind of where the ground rules are. So just want to make you aware of that, which you probably are. But anyway, so why don't you tell us about the committee, how you envision this and who the members are going to be and what you're planning to do.
You're muted, Cheryl, you're muted. There you go.
I have a Word document that I wanted to share on the screen, but I can't with the browser I'm using. So I'm just going to read it to you, and then I will forward you all this one-pager Word document, and it can be included with the minutes, I assume, as well. So the proposed Arts Economy Subcommittee is to address the Advanced CT proposed action to build on the arts and culture traditions and local attractions in Old Lyme to create a unique destination. That's Advanced CT's wording. So to do that, I'm proposing the subcommittee to address three basic questions. One, how can the town of Old Lyme, the EDC specifically, how can the town of Old Lyme best support the arts organizations as well as artists residing in town? Two, how can the town of Old Lyme and its current and future small businesses such as retail, dining, hospitality, how can they take more fully take advantage of to the arts organizations, because there are lots of visitors to the museum and the other organizations. And three, how do we build arts and culture into Old Lyme's overall quality of life so it supports current residents and businesses and attracts new residents and businesses? So as Howard said, the subcommittee would be a transparent town committee with posted minutes, agendas, and open to the public. And the EDC, I assume I or someone else would bring proposed actions to the EDC monthly or whenever necessary to be approved by the EDC. Committee members would include invitations to Old Lyme business persons, such as retailers or restaurant owners with an interest in attracting cultural tourists and or the Chamber of Commerce, representatives of the arts and cultural organizations in town, and art businesses such as owners of art galleries, artists living or working in Old Lyme, town commission members or staff. We know EDC would be an obvious one, but maybe there's other staff or commissions that would be relevant to this work. And then perhaps also residents who are current consumers of the arts and cultural offerings here, who would really give us some good insight into what is important to them in taking advantage of arts and culture in Old Lyme. So I have a proposed timeline, and again, I'll send this out as soon as the meeting's over. January now would be gaining approval from the EDC to set up the subcommittee. In February, we subcommittee members, process volunteer applications to town hall, that sort of thing. I would see the initial meeting of this team in March. And in that initial meeting, create a plan to determine how best to answer those questions. You know, maybe deciding that there needs to be a simple survey that goes out through SurveyMonkey, not something as big as what you all did through Advanced CT, or brainstorming sessions or other options, but as a team deciding how can we best start to gather some data around those questions and develop a timetable for data gathering, prioritizing, and the work to be completed. So that would be in March. In April, I would see us doing data gathering from the arts and tourist benefiting businesses, and then also begin the separate process to determine if Old Lyme's Lime Street meets criteria for a state of Connecticut cultural district, which I've talked about before. I think that's one of the best ways to gain momentum with the state and recognition from the state as a tourism destination more than we already do. So we would begin that process. Some of the work is already done through the Old Lyme Arts District, such as that Excel sheet, which is the inventory I sent out to the committee members before this meeting. It's an inventory of tourism and cultural organizations in town. That was something that was done for Sustainable Old Lyme's certification. And it is exactly what the state of Connecticut is looking for as part of a cultural district application. So some of that work is already done. I would see in May creating as a team and bringing to the EDC priority actions or a list of priority actions to address the questions. And then in June and July, begin work on the priorities. And July 24th, assuming there's a midsummer festival that takes place, which is primarily driven by the vaccine rollout. So optimistically, assuming there's a midsummer festival this summer, we can have some sort of booth presence to promote our work on behalf of the town. And then August through December, I would say continue to work on the priority actions, reporting to the EDC monthly, and hopefully in that time frame, receive approval from the state for the cultural district status. So that's 2021. And then I have on this document, I'll send you all, January 2022, I would say that subcommittee is reviewed by the EDC, determine if the subcommittee needed or its location under EDC or function needs to be reconsidered.
Okay, good. And how many people do you anticipate being on a committee at this point? What do you think?
I'm open to suggestions about optimal size. I know for the cultural district application process, they require certain types of people on your subcommittee or committee. So it has to be the arts organizations, the local chamber of commerce, or some sort of representative for that sort of thing. It needs to be an artist who resides in town. So I think there's perhaps a minimum of 6. I wouldn't want it too big, but I would want to be sure that it felt robust enough that we had enough voices at the table.
Would it be helpful to have anyone from the EDC on the committee itself? Would you welcome that, or?
I would certainly welcome that. If anyone feels they have good input or ideas or resources, absolutely.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Cheryl or comments or? Okay. I'm sorry, Maura, I forgot to recognize you. Maura is interested in joining the EDC and her application is still pending. And, hello, Maura, we're glad you're here.
I'm actually only I'm in between New York City and home. So I pulled over in a rest stop. So I just signed on, but thank you for introducing me, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just share, Maura is involved with Studio 80. Gil Burrow of Studio 80 is a working artist on Lime Street. So that would be a good representation. And I think Maura, I don't want to speak for her, but I think she's also involved in talks with the Academy about some of their planning. But, Maura is certainly, and like our guest, Sherry Cody, Maura has EDC experience in the past in her previous hometown in California. So I think I would be thrilled if Maura, if not on the EDC committee itself, was part of this subcommittee.
Okay. Let me just, I forgot, I don't know if people saw this, but this is interesting. There was an article in the Day this past week, and under economic development, it indicated that the arts contribute $168 million to the economy of New London County, supports 4,500 jobs, provides 10.5 million in revenue to local and state governments and accounts for 3.2 million visitors per year. Also, 66% of art attendees are local, and many art attendees frequent local restaurants and businesses. So, I know there's questions sometimes about how the arts and economic development intersect. And this, I think, points out the significance of the arts, especially to Old Lyme, as a small community which has a significant presence in the arts. So I thought that kind of put an exclamation mark on our efforts to advance, the arts community in town. I lied. I had one other announcement that I forgot to mention, and that's the events magazine will be coming out, I think, in March. But anyway, if we want to have an article, we need to complete that by February 12th. And I was thinking that we've had articles in the past, not all the time, but when there's significant news to report, that it might be a good time. We didn't last issue, but at least to highlight what we're working on as an outgrowth of the advanced CT work and our current projects, and just update people on that. So anyone have any opinion about that, input? Nope. Okay, so if nobody objects, I will go ahead and do that. If anyone would like to participate in authoring that article, send me an email and they could chip in and help out or write it or whatever.
I'd be happy to take a look at what you're doing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, good. I need people to make sure I get it right.
Howard, I have a question.
Okay.
Just going back to the arts subcommittee, does the EDC need to vote on that?
No, I don't think we need to vote on it. I think the selectmen designated it. And we could, if anyone feels we need to. All right, let's vote on it, just so that we have it recorded. So someone want to make a motion and that?
I move that we make the subcommittee for the arts district, or whatever, the arts committee within the EDC.
What's the title of it again? Cheryl?
I called it an arts economy subcommittee.
Okay.
The
Sounds
Arts
good.
Economy Subcommittee.
Okay.
We approve
I'll
that.
second it.
All right. Sure.
All in favor?
Anyone have any questions or anything? No. Okay. All in favor? Any objections? None. It's passed unanimously. Okay. Do you feel better, Cheryl? Nobody rejected you?
I feel official.
Okay. Good.
I have my marching orders. Thank you very much.
All right.
Very good.
Very good. All right. So I think let's, did MJ come on? No. Candace, can you, I know you're probably at a little disadvantage here without MJ being in the meeting, but can you kind of just maybe from what you know, update us on the business spotlight project and where we stand?
I'm happy to do that. So I worked with MJ and we created a document that describes several different sectors, and then within each sector, several businesses that we thought would be appropriate to highlight. Typically, they're smaller local businesses that you wouldn't necessarily know instinctively about. I'm happy to start, the project and go and pick a business. And the idea would be to go and ask them if they'd like to be highlighted, take a picture, talk to them, write a short article. The piece we're missing is a tool to socialize our work product. We can take pictures and write text, but we don't really have a mouthpiece, a place to put that out. We were thinking about the website for the chamber, but that doesn't seem like it's particularly frequented very much. We entertained putting something up on the town website. And I think we asked if that was possible at our last meeting, but there hasn't been a lot of forward motion on finding a place to put this. So without it having a home, Edie, you're trying to speak.
Yeah, I have a few suggestions for that, because I know this is a question for a lot of the committees I'm a part of. And Limeline is one of the good ones to deal with. Also, it sounds like that would be a perfect thing for events if we got it together by February 12th. That would be a really great thing to put in an events magazine. Also, yes, do it on the town site. I think, do we have any presence on FaceTime, Facebook or anything like that? Or do
I do not believe that.
Arts District, of course, yes.
I do not believe that the EDC has a Facebook page. I'm thinking that Limeline may want us to pay.
No,
But you can have
you to pay.
you can have a column. Let me just also add about Facebook. Individual commissions are, it's just town policy that they don't have their own Facebook pages, but it is possible that Michelle can create a column and they wouldn't charge you for a column if Limeline approved having a column on business highlights. But also perhaps Michelle can put it out on the Town of Old Lyme Facebook page, however frequently you're doing this, monthly or quarterly.
And also, even if there was a way to support a presence on Limeline, I know it's fairly inexpensive. I mean, I know that the Historical Society has a listing with them, but they're great at posting new information. I know the Old Lyme Land Trust sends her stuff too, and she's pretty good about putting that stuff up as just basic.
So, so far the suggestions I'm hearing are Events Magazine seems to come out fairly infrequently. We just got one, and you say there's another one coming in March. So it feels like it's like somewhere in the neighborhood of quarterly.
It is quarterly.
And that rhythm, it seems awfully slow to me. I'd like to
one of several.
Do it more frequently than that. So given that situation, I can take an action to reach out to Olwen at Limeline and see if she'd like to embrace this project.
There's also the Neighbors magazine, which is monthly, and there's also the Connecticut Examiner, which is more news, but we can project it, our message as news rather than advertising.
Yeah.
Cheryl, I had a quick question. This is Maura. Cheryl, do they also prohibit any blogging for the commissions to have external blogs or any other social channels? So, because those are fairly simple.
I think I would need to check on that, Maura, but I think it's primarily the Town of Old Lyme website, and perhaps that's something we can think about is having some budget toward some sort of website presence that's consumer friendly for people.
Because we could create, in essence, what it would be, it would function as a blog, but we could just create a web page that could be added to the Old Lyme website, and therefore Facebook and anybody who wanted to lead or direct traffic, they could lead them through that. So in essence, it would be like an extra page on the Old Lyme website. But for social channels, it would actually just be a directive. So you could share it on the town could share it on their social page, but then you would redirect them to, in essence, like a full web page that we could post as a blog, so that you could post multiple and go back and review past posts. So it might be something worth checking into. It's how we did it in Auburn. Is the separate committees could have blog pages, and then we would add those blog pages to the city website.
That's a great
And then
idea.
it can be shared on social media.
It would seem to me that, I mean, looking what other towns do, there's a whole range of options. I mean, some do something very simple, and then there's other towns that actually have a parade and wine and cheese, and I mean, it just goes over the top. I guess they have nothing else to do, but it would. So it would be nice to start small and see how it goes and build on it. But I think if you want to, we can certainly, on the town website, the EDC does have a whole bunch of things posted, so it could go there. We could ask, and I'm sure we could get approval for, the selectmen sends out their weekly bulletin. We could be in there. The other ideas, are also good. I mean, we don't have to do one thing. We can do a whole bunch of things. Do it with Limelight, and then at least get it out there and then see how it goes. And then, if it's accepted and people seem to, it looks successful, we can build on it.
You could also do an email blast to businesses.
Yeah, and then we could do that.
That's always a great way to make businesses feel good about their own particular things.
And
so
you could ask Michelle again to put it on the town website. So I think there's a lot of, and we don't have to just limit it to one. We can do, a number of those things initially. You could also, make it a little bit more formal, maybe hand out, get some certificates printed up or whatever, make a little ceremony, have the EDC and the selectmen, give a little certificate presentation, and, so you can, there's a bunch of things like that I think you could do, and you can do more than one and then see how it goes, and then, build from there. If it's getting acceptance in town and people think it's valuable, then we can build on it. And we do have some money. I put a couple $1,000 in the budget to, anticipation that we would have meetings, for instance, to talk about the advanced CT reports with the public and the other boards and commissions that might, with some printing, things like that. So we do have a little bit of money that I think could fund this too.
Well, thank you all for that. I'll take an action to explore some of these outlets to see, whether I'm thinking, like, off the top of my head, that if we go with Limelight, we probably can't go with CT Examiner. I don't think the two of them are going to be very happy about sharing.
Well, they don't.
Sunday, is it part of the sharing arrangement?
They basically have told me a couple times that they don't, if someone else is publishing something, they don't want it.
Well, you're thinking in terms of a news release or an utterance, and I'm thinking creating an environment in which they come to you.
Correct. Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. I as I say, I think you could try multiple outlets.
Yeah.
It may not work. I know in the past, we've released some press releases, and some of them have been covered by some of the media and not by all. What Edie was saying tends to be correct. They like to have exclusive on some of these, but I think we should not assume they won't do it. Let's try it and see what we get.
I was just saying, so I think I'll start with Limelight and if the reception is weak, I'll add CT Examiner, but certainly Events Magazine, Neighbors Magazine, and the town website are
And also the Arts District, which is Cheryl.
Yeah, we should, Tim could release something in his weekly thing and we
Yeah.
can post it on the website, and we could have Michelle could issue, we could ask them, they can have a release too, as she does the Selectmen's weekly newsletter. We've had announcements, and for instance, when we issued a letter of support, asking people to support local businesses during COVID, she released that. So we've not had any issues trying to get on any of the town media outlets at all. Yeah, they've been she's been very helpful and encouraging. So, yeah, and I think, if we did it where Tim hands somebody a certificate or something, I can't imagine he would not like that opportunity.
Edie, you mentioned Cheryl has an arts
So
community.
The Old Lyme Arts District is something that she has a website for. It's actually often you see it posted in an advertisement on Limeline.
Okay. Yep.
And she loves to have new information to put on that too.
Okay.
Candace, do you think we could at least try it in March so that we can get this going, at least get one off the ground? It would be great to just get that experience, whatever we could do at that point, and see what happens and how well it's received, and then build on it. It would be, even if we didn't have all the outlets, whatever we had at that point would be great. If we land where we could line up a business.
Yep.
And if you need any help or anything, or contacting businesses, I'm sure I'm aware of from my travels when on Hall's Road Committee, and when we did the advanced CT work, we had a lot of businesses participate, and I'm sure we can go back to those people. And there's some businesses that deserve some recognition by the town where they've contributed to the town over the years. I think of the Grables and the Coffees and the Kitchens and, those prominent business owners who contributed so much. We should be nice to give them some recognition. So I'm sure we can line one of them up.
So I agree with you that, those particular people you mentioned deserve to be recognized. But the idea, I think, behind it was to really recognize those businesses that people might not really know exist. I mean, I think if you don't know that, the Kitchings are around and their businesses, then you must be really kind of asleep.
Well, that's fine.
But
I don't think it has to be limited to either one category. I think we could, look and do it though. But whatever you decide is fine. But let's get one business from either way.
Sure.
And if you don't feel
so, the list we have is a lot of one person kind of organizations, maybe not even having a bricks and mortar presence, some place that you might not know exists, that's right here and, available, and sort of to highlight them. So,
an example?
So there's on Beaverbrook, there's two women who've been baking bread during the pandemic, and you can put your order in, one day of the week, and then you pick it up that same week. And, I just sort of found out about it sort of word of mouth. There's a maple sugar place that is somewhat, I had never heard of it, but I think Howard suggested it.
Road, Zero Sugar House.
Yep.
I did a sizable story on it for the resident newspaper.
Was that recently?
It was about 3 years ago.
Okay, so it would be fresh then, right?
Well, I wouldn't use it as I did without consulting with them, but
Oh, of course.
Yeah, no, we,
Step.
I
yeah,
have,
I'm just,
I have the photos. It's done.
no, I
Also-
wouldn't, I mean, I'm just saying that if it's 3 years old, then we can do it again and it won't feel like it's repetitious.
Well, also, I think we need to make sure that to start this, we should make sure these are old Lyme businesses, not Lyme businesses, because, you know, there
right.
should be enough old Lyme businesses that we
Yes.
can include. Unfortunately, Beaverbrook is Lyme, so, but, you know, I like the ideas of what you've got. We just need to make sure, I think the first few ones we want to do is.
Yep.
Send-
Make sure we
old
stay.
Lyme.
Also, so the businesses you're considering, could this, and I'm sorry, I had to step away for a phone call. Is this something that could be kind of tied into buy local?
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd be great.
So I'm not sure. So is buy local, are you just saying the concept of buying local, or is that a particular organization or initiative that I'm not aware of?
Nope, the concept of buying local.
Oh, of course.
And I'm
Yes.
just asking with my sustainable old Lyme hat on, because that is something the state really looks at. Any campaign that encourages people to buy local.
Mhm.
Great. Okay.
That's good.
All right, Candace, I think those businesses you mentioned are fine, and I think what's nice about them, I think they have a nice, homey, compelling little story that will, you know, be hopefully people will be interested in. So those, yeah, so go with those. Yeah, that's fine. But it would be great if we can get this, you know, going in March.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just pulled up the document that we put together. And it is a smattering of not all necessarily old Lyme. So I have Busy Bee Playware, which is Kim Thompson's home business. She makes children's clothing. We have Sarah Michelson Accounting. We have Fitness Focused Allison Duxbury. That's not actually an old Lyme. Yeah, Pat Spratt for the home. We have the E-list. So
That's Chester, right?
Yeah, well, I think any of those are fine. I suggest you know, contact them. I think I've sent, in some of the material I sent, there was a good questionnaire that other towns have used to kind of elicit the information that you want. So
Yep.
I think you could use that and go from there and get them on board. And again, if you guys decide if you want to give a certificate or some kind of recognition, we could do that. You know, so, but I'd really, hopefully we can get this off the ground in March. It would be.
Okay.
I would just add, just to reiterate what Edie said, to be very sure they're old Lyme businesses, because this is a town of old Lyme initiative.
Right, yeah.
And Candace, you probably didn't see it, but I noticed in reading the minutes for November, right before this meeting, that I was supposed to send you and MJ my Excel sheet with tourism attractions in town and small businesses that are attractions, so to speak. So I did email that out right before the meeting. So they aren't super small businesses like Kim's out of the home, but they're small restaurants and things perhaps not everyone thinks of, like Three Trees, Robin Roundtree's home decor business, things like that.
Yeah, great, great.
So you said that you emailed that right before this meeting?
Yeah. It's an Excel sheet.
I will double check that you received, that you were on my email list.
Okay, and if anyone else has any ideas to help out Candace and MJ, please, I'm sure they'll welcome.
So, Howard, what is MJ's status? Did I understand that she had said she didn't have enough bandwidth to support this?
She didn't have what? I'm sorry?
Enough bandwidth to support this?
I have not heard from her to say.
Okay.
Have you not been able to get together with her the past month or so?
I thought our last meeting, she said she had a competing commitment. So I'll reach out to her and see what the story is.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, she hasn't, she might have, I'm sure she said that. I didn't, she hasn't come to me and say, gee, I don't want to do this, or I can't do it. So and I didn't hear from her about today's meeting. So yeah, if you can reach out and find out what's going on. If you need more help, like I said, I'll be happy to jump in and try to help out if I can.
And if you need any extra help, this is something that I've done in Auburn, and it's, I can create either a blog or a website very easily with no cost using Wix or using other platforms. And so if you give me your email, or if Howard sends me your email, I can forward you what we've done, some of the projects that I've done in the past, and they can be done fairly quickly. And like I said, most of the platforms are free or between $20 and $50. So if you need any help, I would be happy to help you with something like that.
That's great.
That's Maura speaking.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is. And so I want to bring up, because I've run into this with Sustainable Old Line, the holdback isn't the technology or the cost. The holdback is control. I don't want to say control in a bad way, but town hall needs to kind of control the message. They want to make sure that they kind of oversee the message. So Michelle Noren is the administrative manager, and she oversees all communications on behalf of Old Line.
So maybe what I could do is, Candace, if you were to shoot me like 2 of the businesses that are definitely Old Lyme, I could do a sample and send it off to you, and it would only take me a couple of hours. So if you wanted some assistance with that, I would love to help you. That's definitely in my wheelhouse. So any help you want, I can help you do that one.
Yay.
Okay, great. And Michelle is I'm very helpful. I'm sure she'll provide any support we've need. We've never had any issues at all, and she's been very helpful in any of our communication pieces. She's done a great job and make sure that they get out to where we want them to.
So Howard, could you make sure that Maura Rowe gets my email address?
Yeah, okay, I will.
And then also, Candace, I double checked and I did send that to the Gmail account that you have, that other EDC mail goes to.
Yep. I'm searching for it right now.
Okay, finished with that topic. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the distribution of the reports, the advanced CT reports. We postponed, originally the idea was that at the conclusion of the reports, and once they were published, that we would potentially have a meeting that would be open to the other boards and commissions, plus the public, and go over the results. And in my mind, at least, is to make sure that the reports were going to be utilized. They weren't just for the EDC, that they had information that was valuable to other boards and commissions, and it's a great way for them to understand what the community wants going forward. So with COVID and everything else, we postponed that, and then I believe last meeting or the meeting before, we decided that let's revisit that in January. And believe it or not, it's January. I did ask Advanced CT what they thought, and my concern was, and it still is, as time goes by, the reports, are they stale? Actually, if you look at when the survey was done, it's over, God, almost 2 years. Can't believe it. But, and the SWATs were a year and a half. So or a week and a half rather than 2, but on both of those. So, on the one hand, it's getting a little stale, and is it old news, and will people not really care? And I asked, so I know, Cheryl, you and I just chatted a little bit when we were talking about some other things, and you had an idea on that, but hold it for a second. I asked Advanced CT, and by the way, part of our contract does include with the funds that we've already paid for those reports was that Advanced CT would do a meeting like this and participate and help go through the reports and explain them. So, it's not, if we do engage them for this, it wouldn't be any additional expense to us. But anyway, so I asked Courtney and Sadie what they thought, and they felt that we should go ahead and try to schedule something in February or March. And they said it could be made more relevant to tie in the work we're doing with the OLI moving forward. But really, the only thing we're doing with them going forward is the business resource kit. So I'm not sure we can build a theme around that per se. Anyway, so that's kind of what they do believe we should have one. We prefer to do in person, but if it doesn't work, then they suggest we do something. So I wanted to see what the committee's feelings on this whole topic is and how we should go forward. So I just put that out there for comment. Cheryl, can I call on you to? I know you had a good idea. I can't remember what it is, but you always have good ideas. So
I have to try to remember what it was. But I think what I was saying is, rather than presenting the old findings, which did get some coverage in Events Magazine and on the website, that sort of thing, to present what you're doing with all of this data. So to talk about and the resource guide and the arts economy, and your top 4 initiatives, home business support, I would just kind of jump to the next step and start talking about what you're doing now.
Great idea. Yes.
Well, I think we can do somewhat of both, emphasizing what we're going to do, but also just go over the highlights of the report and see if people have input or agree with the conclusions, disagree, or things like that. It would be also interesting to hear how other boards and commissions are going to utilize the information. Now, actually, there's good news on that front. If you look at the draft POCD, they do mention the advanced CT reports and in there, and they've utilized that, and they actually have a brief summary of the findings. I had other commissions asked me for various sections of the reports, and I believe they've been used by a few other boards and commissions. So that's where we are. So I guess the questions are, when should we have it? What should the format be? And I think, as we're saying, we have a little, if we had advanced CT there, we could quickly go through the highlights of the report and remind people, because they probably haven't looked at it in a while. Let advanced CT give their take on it, and we can then talk about what the ECD is doing and basically throw out the question to people, what other uses for this report are there? Anyone have any? Oh, John, were you going to say something?
I wasn't going to say anything, but I will. I will say that do we use some of the results from the grand survey to consult with or to throw it out in front of development people who do condominium development and construction in the New London area that happen to have as part of their mix condos in Niantic or Saybrook or this or that? Do we just as a kind of agitation reach out to people who might have ideas? We have some right around here actually, but have they been approached with would you like to come and give us your economic, like money, development ideas? I'm just throwing that out. In other words, it's a little bit of a provocation, and maybe one that's too early for the press, but nonetheless, it might stir up some interest. So that's what was on my mind.
Okay. Anyone else? So what is there, what do people feel about, when we should have this? Should we try to put this together in the next month or two? Should we, wait a little bit? Like if we got to April, would it be enough vaccinations out there and comfort with people having in-person meetings? So I'm kind of struggling with exactly when and the format, and
I think April's overly optimistic.
Okay, so if what we're saying that if we're going to have this in the next couple of months, it would be pretty much a Zoom kind of meeting. And do you think we could get enough interest in that to make it worthwhile? I'd be curious. Cheryl, what would you think? I know you're good at this stuff. All right, you're not good at that. I take it back.
So the first thing I would suggest is I agree with Candace. I think Zoom is probably the best bet. And if you want to make it a really nice presentation, we can talk to Michelle Noren about doing it in the town, like have some sort of town hall presence in that community room and have a camera and make it really professional looking. So, and I think people are getting really comfortable with enjoying presentations from home. So I don't see anything wrong with Zoom. Okay, I've sidelined your question. What was your question on the?
No, that was one of them. So you only sidelined half of it, but that's good. And I think you're right. And I think Advanced CT will help us, put the nice presentation together. That's part of the package. So, and they're good at that. I mean, and I think they're, if we have them kind of play a significant part in it, they'll do a good job. I think they'll make the findings compelling and things, and then we can jump in on where we're going with it. Yeah. And we also always want to kind of give the community a chance to input to things we're doing and make sure that we're, in line of what people would like.
I think we also remember that all those findings are pre-COVID. So
well, we'd have
people can have big, challenges with what's there. It was all written pre-COVID. So
well, we could ask Advanced CT, which is, most of their work right now is involved in helping the state go forward post-COVID. And they're doing a lot of work on that. And they brought in a lot of expertise. So I think that's a good point, but we could have them kind of discuss that. And maybe that's kind of the hook that gets people more interested in this, again, because if we just talk about reports, I think what you're really suggesting is it's a little stale, which I was afraid of. But maybe that's the hook to say, here's what we had, here's COVID. Let's talk about now how we modify going forward what the town needs to do. And that, I think that would have some real interest from the public and other board, wouldn't you think, Cheryl? Or
I think that's a great idea. I think it's
Okay.
timely to say, what now or what next post-COVID, but to also really highlight, here are the things we're doing. Here's the progress we're making.
I think our report has like 4 or 5 town commissions that are obvious customers. You think affordable housing, Halls Road, planning, and I think rather than try and sell it to everyone, sell like a vanilla flavor to everyone, I would rather see a focused effort to those particular customers and say, this report has these items that are pertinent to your mission, and have a conversation, just between us and that particular customer about how our work can supplement what they're doing.
Well, maybe what we could do is, because we also want to give the public an opportunity to participate. So what I'm thinking is maybe we have advanced CT kind of honcho and kind of highlights plus post-COVID their expertise on that and opinions, and have a panel of the key of what you're suggesting of 3 or 4, whatever number of commissions who think that this information is pertinent to what they do. And so then we can kind of cover, and then have the public can participate and ask questions at the end. So we kind of cover all the bases in a sense. How does that sound?
I think
Okay, what if no one objects, what I'm thinking of doing is, why don't I write a memo and to the Board of Selectmen and suggest that we have this sometime in March, and outline what we'd like to do. And I'll circulate that ahead of time. So if anyone disagrees or thinks I haven't captured it correctly, they can input before I kill again.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. All right. Moving right along. The business spotlight, we've talked about. The arts project, we've talked about. The home business support project, I think we're going to just table that for now, plus sound view. And the business resource project I talked about. So we're up to date. I don't want to overwhelm us at the moment with the other projects. Let's get a couple of the ones that we have in the works nailed down. We seem to have the spotlight, the resource guide, and the arts community. Let's get them off the ground first before we kind of add more to our plate, since we have such, it's not easy getting these things done. So unless anyone objects to that, that's what we'll go forward with. All right.
That's good.
Okay. Great. We're now new business. Candace, you had an item that you would like to bring up in new business, and I will let you do that now.
So I was, I think it was in the Connecticut Examiner. There was an article about a little known town access to the Connecticut River, which is off of Tontomahag. And I think it sort of went unnoticed for a long time, but now somebody has bought the properties that straddle this access. So now he's got, and also with COVID, it seems like there are a lot of people, both locally and maybe not so local, who are Googling and identifying our open space areas and sort of arriving at them with only the information that they get from Google. And so it's kind of a mess. And so it occurred to me that both our report highlighted Old Lyme's significant nature preserves that we have to offer, and that they are popular, and that maybe the information that's available to that about them is not necessarily as accurate or centralized as it could be. So I started looking at that a little bit, and I'm thinking that Edie knows a lot more about this than I do. But so there's a town website for the Conservation Commission, and it has a handful of the properties that they oversee on there. There might be a dozen. There's a separate website for Old Lyme Land Trust, and they have another half a dozen properties, which is not actually exhaustive. There are properties that they oversee that are not on their website. And then there's, of course, our Parks and Rec, which is a different source of information. And so I just started putting this little access database together that that has a few fields, just, you know, a map and how much parking there is, whether you can bring a dog, and whether you can hike, and whether you can picnic, and whether it has water access. I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 different fields. And the idea was to centralize all that information so that people could have one place where they could go and find out, you know, what natural resources we have. And since they're all of these places are under the aegis of different commissions and organizations, and since our report pointed to our natural resources, we might serve as a good central clearinghouse to bring all those together. And that's really the extent of my idea.
I'd love to see what you put together, because it's interesting to see what people find on the fly. The Old Lyme Land Trust has 14 hiking trails available. The open spaces of Old Lyme, which includes things like the new property for McCullough Farm, they have about 12 more, maybe a little less, but it's always confusing who's who and what's what. I've tried to get Michelle to make sure both things are listed. Then there's also the Lyme Land Trust, which is up in Lyme, and they have vast quantities of properties you can hike on. And yes, it should all be something that is easy to access. We're just now, the Old Lyme Land Trust is beginning to include a link to the Lyme Land Trust and to the open spaces so that people can find as much as possible. So I don't know if that answers any questions, but.
So I'm just keeping the scope to Old Lyme because that's more than enough.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the database right now, and the McCullough property, I thought that was under the responsibility of Old Lyme Conservation Commission.
No,
Open space.
it's Old Lyme Open
It's the Open
Spaces.
Space Commission.
It's contiguous with some Old Lyme Land Trust land, the Lay Allen.
Yep. So I put the Lay Allen as a separate property under Old Lyme Land Trust.
Yep.
But this is where it gets dicey, because I believe McCullough is listed on Old Lyme Conservation Commission.
Candace, it's Old Lyme Open Space Commission.
Oh, so it just changed its name.
No, it's the
Separate.
Open Space Commission.
Separate.
Okay. Okay. This is why we need to do this.
So let me just bring up, I know the Land Trust and Open Space have been working on a combined map and a combined visual of all of their properties together. It wouldn't include things like Haynes Park and White Sands and Cross Lane, which are town properties managed by Parks and Rec.
Right.
It would seem to me that you're making a very good point, Candace, but it seems to me that what we're really talking about is almost something bigger, like a tourist guide for Old Lyme, where the Historic Society has their very nice brochure about the historic walk around town. Cheryl, you have your arts community materials that talk about the various arts businesses and organizations. And then you have, there is a guide to all the land trust trails and everything, and then it's missing kind of the pieces that are fill-ins, like you say, Candace. It doesn't give you everything, but it seems like if you put all of that together, add your suggestions, and make basically one tourist guide for Old Lyme that you could, if you want, put them all together. So if you want to walk the historic trail, here it is. If you want to hike on a land preserve, here it is. If you want to go to the arts community, here's all the information together. So when you come to Old Lyme, you can get it all in one piece instead of it being separate all over the place.
And this is Maura. When I work with you, you can go to the website that I developed that did all of those things for the city of Auburn. It's called exploreauburnca.com. And that's something that I did in-house. That wasn't something I sent to a web developer. So these things, there's so many tools to do that very thing. For Explore Auburn CA, we did everything. It's businesses, where to eat, where to dine, where to play, whether it was water access or hiking trails, and then links to the various sites from there. But then it was a condensed kind of list. So when I work with you, I can also kind of give you some ideas on that because it does all kind of tie together. People who come that maybe want to explore the arts and then a little bit of nature. And it can all kind of fit into a blog or a little website. And again, it's so cost effective to do that now. And even if you wanted to do an online guide, that would be fairly simple to do.
John, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, let's go back to the boat landings. That little known boat landing was very, very well known about 15 years ago when there was a considerable dispute about its use, very similar to the one that's taking place now. It also involved a potential land swap for some land down by the railroad tracks for that fairly substantial piece of land, which is not a muddy little trail to the water, but actually branches out to the south for quite a considerable distance. At that point, a sizable number of people met a few times under the aegis of the town and reviewed other boat landings, other water access points, which people did not know about at all, but which, among other people, tracked down, going down defunct driveways to muddy patches on the Black Hall River, for example. There are quite a few around. Back, just make one point. You should factor in the Harbor Management Commission.
Mhm.
Yes, John, I actually thought they should be under this too.
They are in fact supervising the Tanamaheg issue.
Yeah,
So,
I'm aware of that. Yep.
having said that, now let me shift gears to visit Old Lyme. The Chamber, 3 or 4 or 5 times over the past 20 years, did indeed publish a nice little book with as many chamber members as possible, displaying rather prominently places to do, things to do in Old Lyme, including Mr. Camion, bicycle trails, bicycle routes, which were shouted down at one point. It's too dangerous to ride on that road. So it's not as simple as it would seem. Similarly, people take down the public access boat launch signs. They don't want people on their land. That isn't their land, though. That led in Saybrook to a fairly large lawsuit, which the town won, which resulted in the reclaiming of access points to the waterways. And the state does have a system now of indicating them with state signs with postal access. That's enough for now, but if you need to know more about boat launches, I can point you in the right direction. You can ask Mr. Griswold or Ms. Green Schneider, who led a tour of boat launches about at that time, those years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
I
So,
think the Chamber of Commerce directory from a couple of years ago, John, that's a great idea to take a look at that because it did have resources on there for nature hiking and things like that. But I sent out earlier today that Excel sheet has, it just speaks to Lime Land or Old Lyme Land Trust and open spaces. It doesn't break out all the trails, and it has the boat launches, and that connects to a Google map with all of the locations on it, and that has to reside. Here's another one of the technology challenges that resides on the Old Lyme Arts District website because the firewalls on the town's website doesn't allow for Google Maps. So the town website directs you to the Arts District Google Map of all the arts and culture and tourism, including things like Black Hall Outfitters, which I keep coming back to as a great recreational draw to Old Lyme.
Yeah. I'd say go for it along those lines, but because the description, I think I've done the only description of the boat a long time ago, which includes terrible for launching too muddy at low tide. I mean, there are local knowledge issues which have to be addressed.
yep.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Candace, do you want to kind of absorb the input you got today and come back with a specific recommendation of what you think we should do? Would that work for you, or?
I actually think if Candace, if you send me the sheet that you put together, I might be able to clarify some things for you. Just because it sounds
Okay.
like some things you might not have. It's very easy to find the wrong information out
Yep.
on Google. So
I just got started on the town website. I mean, the intent was to include like boat launches and obviously the park and rec properties, but I just got started on it because I didn't want to invest a lot of time until I understood whether people thought it was a reasonable idea.
I think it's definitely a good idea. And I think, the other real challenge we have in this town is that we have all this beach coastal land and there's no public access without a beach permit anywhere for the town. And it's really screwed up. I mean, you can't go to White Sands in the summer if you don't have a tag on your car windshield, or Soundview. I guess Soundview you can park in the parking lot somewhere, but
You can't park at Haynes Park without a tag.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's,
if you're from out of town and you want to visit this place, there's not much you can do next to the water unless you go to, a town landing or, the DEP dock or something. But, there's
good luck with Park and Rec. They're unlikely to change their minds on that.
Yeah, I'm not asking that it could, but I'm just pointing out, this is one of the issues that we have in our listing options.
I mean, I thought maybe once we were done, maybe that could highlight, what we have and the fundamental inconsistencies across. You can get to this one, but not that one. And you can park here, but not there. And you can, and try and have something consistent so that somebody who's not a resident could even understand where they could go or what they could do.
And there's also things like broader searches like trails.com or something like that. That if I tried to list the Old Lyme Land Trust trails on that, and you have to individually draw the map on every single trail for that particular site, but a lot of people use that and they never find our stuff. They find, Gillette's Castle or something like
Right.
that. They don't find the more land trust type things.
This has got me reawakened because I made a serious effort to try to create what I call the Connecticut Riverway Trail. And this was to go from the old bridge abutment north of the Baldwin Bridge all the way down to the launch on Smith Neck. And the intent was to have both a land trail and a water trail. And the idea, and I still want to do this, but I actually had the BSC group, which reminded me of this. I had them draw up plans, and it's a 5-mile course that would have to be created on land. And you're probably talking to the tune of I don't know if it would be $1 million a mile, but it might be. And the intent was, as an economic development measure, that we could have, for example, Black Hall Outfitters providing kayaks and canoes. You could have the Old Line Bicycle Shop providing rental cycles. You could have, high school kids, college kids from town circuiting this because, for example, somebody can only handle a 1-mile ride. Fine, ride from the I forget they call it now, I guess the scenic overlook, north of the Baldwin Bridge, ride to Ferry Road, get in a kayak back, have, young people from the town make a few dollars shuttling bicycles and kayaks as required. Let the local establishments, the bicycle shop, the Black Hole Outfitters provide the rental equipment. And I thought it would be a draw because it would also allow people to discover and to do this. What killed it was I was looking for some help on how to acquire funding, and I kind of got busy. At the time I was still running an engineering practice, and I had gotten kind of busy, primarily because all the work ended up in New York and Boston because the state kind of rolled up into nothing. So I'm interested to get back in that game and to try to do something with it. So, Candace, your work, Cheryl, Edie, I'm interested to see if we can revitalize that. I have to see, I have the drawing. I have a hard copy, but if we were meeting in person, I'd roll it out. But I think I have an electronic file of it that I could send. Maybe Edie, you could look at.
Okay.
Right?
Good. Yeah. Yeah, we should try to revisit that and find out what we can do to advance that. So it's 6:25. I want to end by 6:30. Candace, what do you think should our next step be here?
Well, my
Based on what we discussed.
EDC plate kind of overflows.
Okay.
Because I did commit to getting this business spotlight off the ground by March. So I'm happy to send my Access database over to Edie for editing. And maybe by the time she weeds her way through that, I will be out of the weeds on the business spotlight.
Okay, that's very understandable.
Like a good idea.
So let's do that. And again, if you need help on the business spotlight because MJ is not available yet, I'll jump in and help.
Well, it sounds like Maura Rowe is also eager to help as well. So,
Maura's better qualified than I am, and you'll get better help from her. Okay, good. Sherry, since you're a visitor in the last couple of minutes, and you were patient enough to listen to this, and you haven't put your house up to sale while we're talking, if you'd like to comment, you don't have to, but if you'd like to comment or have any input, that'd be great.
Thank you. So great meeting. It was great to see all of you. And just remember that sector, who I work for, is the region's economic development district, and we are here to support you. And we'd be happy to come back and maybe even do a little presentation on all of the things that we do for our municipalities, one of them being Old Lyme, of course. But thank you for letting me sit in, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the future.
Sherry, how do we get your contact information?
If you give me your email address, I will email you.
Okay, great.
Also, Sherry, do you have a website address for Sector?
It's sector.org, secter.org. And so, Howard, do you want me to send you an email? I need your email.
Yeah, okay, well, let's adjourn, let everyone else go. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Anyone object? Okay, so moved, okay. Thank you all, appreciate your hanging in there. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Howard, remember to stop the video.
Okay. I'm gonna figure out how to do that. Stop. Okay. Okay, even I could do that.